2021 in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this is our early Wednesday recording in honor of your impending departure for Virginia.
And then New York City, and then Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm still interested. I wouldn't necessarily give people the address that you sent me, but it interests me that you happen to, by coincidence, be staying right near a largely Jewish neighborhood. Because while I expected to give you food recommendations, I do know a lot of restaurants in that neighborhood, but they're not necessarily things that might be at the top of your list.
But considering the New York demographics, what are the odds that I throw a dart at the map of New York and hit a Jewish neighborhood?
In Queens?
Yeah. 1 in 3? 1 in 5?
No.
1 in 2?
There's a large Jewish contingent in various parts of Brooklyn. There are a couple of Jewish neighborhoods in Manhattan. Queens has several distinct ones, but I expected you to be based on some of your previous statements, I expected you to be in a different part of Queens in regards to how you were picking the location.
Oh.
But either way...
Did I pick a bad spot?
No. I'm saying I didn't expect to be able to tell you a lot about where you were staying, because I thought you would be staying in a different part of Queens.
Now, I will tell you, I am kind of worried, because I got on the Google Street Maps, and I was wandering around the area looking at parking.
No, parking over there is horrible.
I'm worried about parking, because I did not see a single pickup truck on any of the roads around the area.
You're surprised that pickup trucks are not as popular in New York City as they are in other places.
What, y'all ain't got to move stuff?
I'm not saying there aren't pickup trucks. I used to have somebody on my block who had a pickup truck. I'm saying that in an urban area, people tend towards either minivans for moving many people, or people tend toward vans are popular for people moving stuff. And then other people tend to have sedans, which are very popular because of their needs. But I did give you a recommendation for the neighborhood you are in, something that I thought you'd appreciate. One of the best ice cream shops in the country is only a few blocks from where you're staying. Max and Minna's, you can look it up. It's been featured on the Travel Channel, among other things. Unlike most ice cream shops where they bring in the ice cream, these people make it on premises. And they're famous for, let's just say, interesting flavor choices that change every time you go there.
Really?
Yeah.
So I shouldn't go there and get, chocolate?
No, they have chocolate, just they'll have, interesting combinations. And every day they rotate their selection. So they will always have, a traditional vanilla or chocolate, but I'm saying they'll have other things, like cereal and what have you.
All right, cool.
So that is worth recommending. Again, I can recommend a bunch of kosher restaurants, but that's not necessarily your thing. So there's a lot of restaurants in New York City. In that neighborhood, I know a few.
My daughter wants New York pizza, thin crust, lots of cheese, lots of pepperoni, thin crust.
Then if you want pepperoni, then don't go to any Jewish pizzerias. You won't get pepperoni on a pizza in one of those.
Oh.
But again, there are others in the neighborhood, and I just have to look based on convenience, because some of the places that I know that aren't far from there, the parking is worse. So I have to find an area where you can go where the parking wouldn't be bad. That isn't far away. There are many good pizzerias in Queens.
Okay. Cool.
And I might be able to recommend one if you swing further east where the parking will be better.
I'm up for that.
Okay. Anyway, we'll keep in touch during your trip. So beyond that, you may have heard like a whooshing noise in the background.
A whooshing noise, you say?
Yes, that is the sound of the 3D printer that I built on my vacation.
You built a 3D printer.
Assembled.
Assembled? Well, you know,
I didn't.
built.
Well, if I had wanted to build the printer from scratch, I would have needed a 3D printer to 3D print the 3D printer.
Interestingly, there's a project
that does that, yeah.
RepRap, which are replicating. They're replicating. I don't know. They're self-replicating machines. Is the idea?
That's scary. So
yeah, it's like these people never watched Stargate.
Well, I've been catching up on my Stargate. Unfortunately, because they took it off of Amazon Prime, I've had to hop from network to network, but I'll get through it all.
You may or may not find this interesting, but my truck is named Sam.
Because of that, or just a coincidence?
She's named after Samantha Carter.
Okay, that is very interesting.
Because, you know, Sam is smart as hell, but she's also tough as bricks.
I've never named my automobile. Maybe I'm afraid of emotional attachment because I've been hit a few times in automobiles.
Maybe it's a southern thing. I don't know.
No, I know people all over the country. I name my computers, but that's mostly to find them on the network. But either way, I took your advice on a lot of my 3D printing attempts. So I did end up going with the printer that you recommended, the Creality Ender 3 version 2. You didn't recommend the version 2, but I did my research on that, and it seemed like it was a worthy upgrade from the version 1.
I have read the same.
So I assembled the printer, which took a little longer than I wanted to, and then I had a little trouble leveling it. Because apparently you have to have the bed perfectly level or else it will not print properly. Then I went and inserted the card they provided me and printed a dog. Because it comes with two test
Just
models.
Keep in mind,
as a dog.
Level does not mean level to like the earth. You know, like with a bubble level. Level means that the surface is flat.
Yeah. I did both. I actually did use a bubble level, which I found helped me along with the piece of paper that they advised. So the advice that they have is you put a piece of paper and you use the distance between the paper and the nozzle in order to figure out how to level it. But I found that I was having trouble orienting without having the bubble. So I did put a little bubble level on there and use that to help me figure out whether or not I had to go up or down. Either way, either way, then you get into all of these upgrades you can do where you could get better springs, or you can get better turn knobs, or you could get a better nozzle, or you can get a better extruder setup, or you can get a better intake. It could be plastic, which it came with, or you could upgrade to all metal. And so it's like a rabbit hole of expansion, which actually is one of those things that I enjoy about projects, the ability to expand over time. So,
right.
I started this on Monday night, and it took me, a little while before I've gotten into the swing of things. And then I started downloading Thingiverse files. Thingiverse being the online repository, although not the only one, for things, namely 3D printing files that you can load on. Except then I discovered that the files are in one format, and the thing accepts in a different format. So all the downloadable files are in STL format, and apparently the printer accepts G-code.
Right, because the STL is like a definition of what the object is, what it's shaped like, and G-code is actual commands for the printer to move here, move there, push out this much plastic. Stuff like that.
So I had to find a program that was installable, and I tried to find one that was installable without me having to compile it on Fedora. So I found a slicer with a 3, which is apparently cross-platform.
There is a fork of that called Prusa Slicer.
Yeah, I'd have to manually install that. I don't think it's an RPM format, so I may try it at some point. But
it may be worthwhile
Yeah.
for you.
Then I got into this other problem that you have to configure the settings on in the program to match the settings of your printer, and I think I did that correctly, but maybe not. And then I got into this whole problem of you have to decide how much fill and what pattern in order to. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on this. In order to get the best combination of strength and plastic usage, how much was it? Infill is the term,
Yes.
and what pattern?
If you're doing something that is not structurally important, then no infill is fine, or 5% infill. If you're doing something that is mildly structurally important, I like to do like 20% infill with the gyroid pattern. If it needs to be really strong, then I'll bump it up to like 70 with the triangles fill.
I was using honeycomb.
Honeycomb's cool.
I don't know what, and 25% for structural integrity. I tried 100% on one thing, because the first prints that I did with the default settings for infill and pattern would fall apart. So I tried to print that little figurine that I was talking to you about when I lost a game piece.
Yeah.
And it had no structural integrity. It actually fell over before the thing was finished. So I think I've gotten better. I think I've finished the settings. I also seem to have a bed adhesion problem because it is a pain to get things off of this, even though I have a glass bed. It is a pain to actually get these things off, and I'm worried I'm going to crack something.
You have a glass bed?
Yeah, the V2 comes with a glass bed.
Oh, nice. I don't know how you're having adhesion problems.
Maybe
especially in the excessive. Are you putting anything on the glass?
No, I did clean it.
Okay.
Maybe I need to clean it better in between usages.
You spray it with hairspray.
Hairspray?
Yep.
Wonder if I have any hairspray.
I like to use the Aqua. What is it that I use? Aquanet extra super hold, and the hairspray is really nice because it provides an insulative layer in between the filament and the glass, so that it doesn't actually bond to the glass.
Yeah, I just worried then about it slipping, because that's what happened with some of the initial prints.
Well, when the hairspray is hot, do you have a heated bed? I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Okay, when the bed is hot, the hairspray gets sticky. But when it cools down, it stops being sticky. So you can just pop it off.
Yep. My other problem is that occasionally the edges are not quite as smooth as I'd like them to be. That it seems to have like little threads of filament.
Oh, stringing.
Yeah, is that a thing?
Yep.
What do you do about that?
Retraction settings.
I'll have to find them. Is that on the thing or in the slicer?
It's in the slicer.
Okay. But I have printed some nice things. I printed a little thing to since my theme for printing has been game parts. I printed a thing that fits playing cards, so like a little tray. Because when I tried to find those online, they were like $2.50 a pop, just for a tray that stores a deck of cards. So I figured that I could build, and I did, and I've been doing that to store all of my cards.
I know it can feel a little overwhelming, but over time, you'll pick it up. You're a smart guy, and
yeah.
it's.
This is just I'm printing objects in order to experiment. So right now I decided the next experiment I have is what is the largest, because I was printing these little tiny figurines, so I tried to print something larger. So I'm printing something that actually goes pretty much the width of the bed.
Have you printed a benchy?
What's a benchy?
It's a boat.
No, I printed a dog. I printed a harbor.
There is a specific STL image. It's a boat. It looks like a little tugboat. It's called a benchy. That is the standard. I want to see how well my printer is print. And so when in a lot of places where they're talking about how to fix your printing, they'll show pictures of benchies that they've printed because everybody knows what a benchy is supposed to look like.
Also, you get a bunch of boats,
A bunch of who?
a bunch of little boats that you can put somewhere.
Oh yeah,
You have a pile of these things somewhere.
I I think I cleared them out a little while ago, but I have printed probably 60 or 70 of those things.
Yeah. Also, how long does it take you to get through an entire kilo of filament?
Um, I think my first kilo I was through in about a week.
I better buy more filament.
Yep.
Well, again, I understand from your previous description that once you have mastered this, you will probably do a little less experimentation and a lot less waste. But I
Yeah,
think
but
early
you'll
on,
do a lot more printing because as you get better at it, you start seeing ways in which you can use it, and it's I don't know.
yeah. Well, I also have to move it because remember, I have it here and I have to take it back to my apartment, so I have to be very careful.
3D printing is fun.
No, I meant I have to be very careful in moving it. I don't want to break it and transport it. Maybe I should have bought the enclosure.
No, enclosure. You want the enclosure if you're printing ABS. All it does is keep the heat inside.
Yeah, but that would work with anything else. It'll make things print faster if the heat stays in.
No, for PLA, you want it to cool down faster.
Well, I learn something new every day. I have not gotten into alternative printing materials yet. That's another can of worms. Then it's, do I want to upgrade parts, which I was looking into. Do I want to do automatic bed leveling, which at the moment seems like a luxury? Do I want to replace the one part that's been annoying me the most?
What's that?
The place where you load the filament. Every time there's a spring there, and every time I push down on it, it irritates the side of my finger. I thought maybe switching to a metal one might make that a little easier.
Probably not. Those things are. You have to push down on it.
There's like a spring you have to compress and then stick it in. And then there's a wheel you turn.
Oh, okay.
Well, again, design being different. So I'm learning. If anybody has any suggestions, since I do not know how to create these 3D printing models yet, because that will be a project after I master actually printing things, trying to modify or build something, somebody should send me a Android Buffet file that I could print out. Can you? Is it easy if you have a static image? Is it easy to turn it into a 3D object?
For some people, I'm sure it is.
No, I'm saying that you should be. I'm not talking about turning it into like a fully three-dimensional object, just like an embossed plate, like where it looks the same way that they do. You can take a picture and turn it into embroidery. You know those algorithms that
I'm sure there are ways. I don't know how.
Okay, I'm interested if anybody has any artistic bent, because I don't. So I'm now halfway through my vacation, which has mostly involved sitting around eating matzah, which is not my most fun vacation, but at least I got to catch up on some things. Installed some smoke detectors, did some repairs. I ran a power line out to my weather station so that it won't be battery powered anymore. There were advantages to battery power, but I got tired of during the winter the batteries going dead and me having to wait till spring to replace them because I didn't want to drive up here and fix them. So now, admittedly, the thing will go off in a power outage, but most power outages around here are like an hour. So more to figure out. So that is my 3D printing saga. If anybody has any suggestions about what I should print, right now I am printing, again, gaming accessories for my family's current obsession with Ticket to Ride.
Okay.
Well, again, go online and look, and the Ticket to Ride uses standard size playing cards. Go try to find a single thing to store a deck of playing cards and how much it costs and how many choices you have. That's a really easy thing to print with a 3D printer. Because essentially a good playing card deck holder is four spikes, one in each corner, and a flat plate. That's really easy to print. So I can just mass produce them as needed. Anyway, I'll figure out that stringing thing as well.
Yep.
So
it's an interaction between temperature and retraction.
Yeah. I'm sure the more research I do, the better I'll get. So, a few bits of information from the Google universe. Google is using federated learning to improve the assistant's wake word functionality.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really interesting. So essentially, there's a new setting that allows them to improve the intelligence. So this is a privacy-enhancing technique where they can improve their learning models without sending any raw data to the Google servers. So essentially, it stores short bits of voice recordings on your device, and then they use that to learn how to adjust the triggering logic, but they don't actually transfer the recordings themselves. So they just transfer their analysis. So more storage on your device, but I'd imagine the analysis takes a lot less space to transfer, because they're stripping out everything but what they want to know. Although I did see an article that Google does send a lot of from Android does send a lot of information back to Google.
Didn't I see something saying like 10 times what?
I thought it was 20.
Could be.
Yep. So
it was a big number.
Yeah. So I like that a lot of companies are what's the term? Edge computing. That's the term I'm thinking of. Where instead of sending it up to a server, the device can do some of the basic functions itself. And I know that all of the smart devices do hot word detection on device. So the triggering word is done using a processor that's listening locally. And then once it's triggered, then it sends the audio to be processed somewhere else. And that pretty much applies to all of them. Moving along, T-Mobile apparently wants to be the best carrier for Google and Pixel fans.
They do, and how are they going to make any? What are they going to do differently?
Google Messages will be the default SMS program on all new T-Mobile phones. They're going to expand the array of Pixels and other Android devices they carry. They're going to essentially rely on Google One and Google Drive as integration, and they're going to promote YouTube TV as their premium TV solution, and
oh no!
T-Mobile customers are eligible for $10 off YouTube TV.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be shutting down their T-Vision service, which is theirs, and if you don't want to pay for YouTube TV, they are offering Philo with a discount. So they're getting out of the TV game.
What the heck is a Philo?
Philo TV, you've never heard of it?
64 channels, $20 a month.
So you have heard of it, or you're just looking now?
I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never tried it. But I understand, you can't just have YouTube TV, which is getting increasingly expensive. You do need other alternatives. So
YouTube TV is getting so expensive. I mean, you might as well buy cable now.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that Google doesn't realize that they might need a low tier. See, there are things I would pay for, and there are things I wouldn't. YouTube TV at the moment is in the wouldn't category.
Me too.
Anyway, moving along, a new spyware on Android pretends to be a system update for your phone. So just be careful.
Seems clever.
Yeah. Lawn share. Yeah.
I was just wondering. Go ahead. Then I'll ask my question.
I was going to mention the next story, which is Lawn Share 11 is here, and I mentioned Lawn Share.
My question was, what the heck is a lawn chair?
Okay, Lawn Share is a launcher that's designed to be an open source clone of the Pixel launcher for people who don't have Pixels. So they took, all the features of the Pixel launcher and put it into this open source launcher, but it hadn't been updated in a while. So I think I've mentioned it a few times, just in passing, that this project had been dead, but they found a new team of developers to take it over. This is what I use on my non-Pixel devices to make it look pixelish because I like the pixel design.
Yep.
So there's a new alpha, which is apparently very raw.
Alpha E.
Yeah. So the new version's only been tested to work with Android 11. They will be putting in support for older versions, but again, they're still in very early days. And they have a new Lawn Feed 3, which allows Google Feed integration on the home screen. So they are trying to reproduce the general feel of the Pixel launcher for all devices. If you are a user of Google Files, that's reached 1 billion Play Store installs. I'm one of the 1 billion.
You're 1 in a billion.
I am 1 in a billion. Well, actually, no, I have it on 2 devices. I'm 2 in a billion. By the way, one other thing that I do with Lawn Share now, I install Lawn Share on my parents' phones so that they have a nice, clean experience. My father did have a unfortunate phone incident this week. You remember how a few months ago my battery swelled slightly and I got Google to exchange it?
Yes.
Well, he has a Moto G and his battery didn't just swell slightly. So he had like a case on it. And he was wondering why it wasn't closing, so he took the case off and discovered like a gigantic swell in it. Like nearly the entire back had expanded offward. So I have ordered him a phone. Now, if I were in Queens, I could have gotten him a phone within 24 hours. Amazon does usually 1-day shipping on phones. But I am in what one FedEx employee once referred to as God's country.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm just saying I'm in a more rural area, so I ordered it on Tuesday and it won't arrive till Friday, which is not so bad, but it's just I'm worried about him using a phone with a swelling battery.
I would be too.
Yeah, he doesn't want to stop using it. It is his primary.
So much for safety first.
Yeah, well, he is turning it off when he's not using it. Whereas normally he would leave it charging all night.
Has he tried putting it in a vise to compress it so it's not swollen?
No, but I would worry about that. It might break something. We did offer him, my mother has a phone with a cracked screen that she offered him that's otherwise fine. But either way, he's had the phone for 2 years. It's time. My mother has been through 2 phones, but that's only because she's broken phones. So he'll replace it. He'll get a much nicer phone. He actually is getting the same phone my mother now has, but he's paying less money for it. So happy ending. The Google Maps app was enhanced. It added an indoor live navigation view.
This is freaky.
Well, this was very helpful to me in what I'm not talking about in very simple buildings, but there are some buildings where I find it hard to find where I'm going. Did I ever tell you the story of my visit to the Vatican Museum?
Nope.
I went to the Vatican Museum in December of 2011. We would have talked about me visiting Italy at the time because we were doing this podcast then. But being as that was a decade ago, I honestly do not remember what we talked about at the time. So I went to the Vatican. I thought, I like art, so I would go and walk through the museum. And it wasn't very crowded. The problem was that I couldn't get out, and I thought this was like some sort of conspiracy. People who aren't Christian go in and they don't let them out. I'm kidding, but either way, I was walking around in circles for like an hour because every time you think you're out of there's another Catholic gift shop, and then you can't seem to get out.
It's kind of like being in an IKEA where somebody has turned the arrows on the floor around.
I was thinking more Disneyland, except Disneyland, that once you've gotten to the gift shop, you can get out. Here, you get to the gift shop, there's another hallway. But I eventually, after turning around and then talking to several guards and then pointing in the right direction and still not getting to where we were going, we discovered that there was one place that we had not tried to get out that we were able to get out through. The Sistine Chapel.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was a very specific reason why we hadn't tried that. We had been in the Sistine Chapel first, since it's a famous place, and we didn't think we had to go back there. But either way, this app would have been very helpful because it could have navigated me out of the building when I could not find my way out. So I appreciate the idea. Now, if it's a much simpler building, again, but there are some places where it's just hard to find the exit. IKEA being another one of them, although I don't think that maps could keep up with, as you mentioned, the fact that they move the walls in IKEA every few months. I think they do that to keep you in. I've made Minotaur jokes there. I'm the only one who found them funny, but I have made that comment there. They've also added a weather and an air quality layer, so you can overlay on your maps weather conditions and air quality conditions, which I think is a good iteration. Air quality, especially after what happened in California this year with the smoke. And weather, of course, because as you know, I have a long-standing interest in random weather things.
That you do.
And of course, finally, eco-friendly navigation. And I was debating on this one because I was trying to figure out how this is going to affect my daily life.
Eco-friendly.
Yeah. So let me just sort of read from their description. So they've built a routing model that optimizes for lower fuel consumption based on factors like road incline and traffic congestion. So the Google Maps will default to the route with the lowest carbon footprint when it has approximately the same ETA as the fastest route. In cases where the eco-friendly route could significantly increase your ETA, we will let you compare the impact so you can choose. So they'll give you a preference to say you always want the fastest route. Now, I have a prediction about this. If you have two routes that have roughly the same travel time, but one may have a lower economic footprint, that probably means less traffic congestion, which means Google will be sending everybody down local streets, which will not make people in those neighborhoods very happy.
I don't think going through local streets would be...
I'm talking about in traffic-heavy areas. They're going to take them on less used streets that don't have quite as much traffic, and those are streets that may have not previously gotten any level of traffic, thus changing traffic patterns, and that may lead to unhappy commentary from the people in those neighborhoods.
Still, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and for me, my continual complaint about Google is that they don't seem to learn that I want to go a specific way and work with me on that. So there are two different ways. I never want to go this way. I always want to go the other way, and they never want to take me the way I want to go. But when I ignore their instructions and go that way, it does not significantly increase the estimated time of arrival. In fact, it's usually within the minute. I'd also like Google to know that I hate making left turns in certain circumstances. I will go a block out of my way to go on a street that has a left turn light or a light, because in certain, I'm not talking about every place, but as you know, there are places where making a left turn is dangerous.
Well, you are aware that the UPS routing software
does the same thing. It avoids
designed to avoid left turns.
Well, I don't mind left turns. The thing is, the one that really bothers me is a left turn across a double, 2 lanes in each direction, that busy street that has cars going in both directions at a high rate of speed. You can picture that scenario. I had a few of these in Florida when I was driving down there, where Google took me somewhere where they wanted me to make a left turn over essentially a 4-lane road without a light, and where people were speeding down at 45 to 60 miles an hour, depending on how much traffic there was ahead of them. I try to avoid things like that.
Sure.
I'm not saying I don't do it if I have to, but I would rather that Google knows.
To show that you, as smart as computers are, sometimes you still need a human to make a human decision.
Well, I think that's something that a computer could figure out. First of all, I don't know if Google stores how many lanes each road is. They store the road, but I don't know if they store the actual configuration of the road. Then you have to realize that making a left in certain circumstances is something that people find undesirable. And then you have to have a setting to change the logic so that you avoid left turns on where potentially dangerous. But you realize that if Google did something like that, they could significantly increase safety. If they did not route you to places where you are more likely to engage in risky driving behavior, that is a feature people would love. Again, as long as you could turn it off.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, Google has sent me some crazy ways over the
Turn
years.
it off.
Yeah, but Google has sent me some crazy ways over the years. And most of their options for configuring it, it's avoid tolls. That is, admittedly, I like the idea of avoiding tolls. However, there are decisions that have something to do with it. I would sort of like a slider. Would you rather pay money based on the amount of time the toll saving money would add to your trip? So if I can save like $2 by adding 1 minute to my trip, that seems like something I might consider doing. If I have to add 20 to 30 minutes to my trip to save $2, I'd rather pay the $2.
So like how much is my time worth slider?
Yeah, and again, that's where I think Google sort of falls down. They realize the opportunity in some of these cases, but they don't realize the simple things that they could do that would have an impact. Rather than, we're going to calculate your carbon footprint.
I wonder if they know how much the tolls are.
That's public information. They can get it.
Doesn't it depend on like how many people you're carrying and?
No, you're thinking. There are carpool exceptions. But if you're talking, the majority of tolls are not carpool based. Carpool based has something to do with HOV lanes, and as far as I know,
tolls here in Florida, or at least not northern Florida.
Well, again, I've driven in northern Florida recently, but I know that
I did buy a multi-state.
Oh, the U-Pass or the E-Pass or whatever it is.
Yeah, an E-Pass thing.
Yeah, I bought one of those when I drove down. I have an Easy Pass, which is the New York thing, and I put that into a shielded bag. And I bought the E-Pass because it was the only one I could find that would cover all the toll systems I had to pass through, and that I could get mail order and fill online in the time frame I wanted.
Is it white?
Yeah, it's like a little white thing that you suction cup to your.
I think I got the same one.
Probably.
It's for the exact same reasons. I could mail order it and fill it in, and it worked in almost all the states I was going through.
Well, what I would have rather had is if Florida's Turnpike would accept Easy Pass, because the northern Florida stuff does. So part of Florida has got it on Easy Pass, which means it's compatible with the New York system, and the Easy Pass system stretches all the way down to Washington. So I used my Easy Pass all the way to DC, and then switched over when I got to Florida. I would like it if I could use one. I don't need that many toll-paying devices. But again, there's all these things that could be done. Integration with the toll-paying system. Imagine if you could get information from the toll-paying system and integrate that with maps in order to determine useful bits of information. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying these are all interesting possibilities. But
I think it would be interesting for people. They would have to make a choice on how much is their time worth, and most people don't think in this way.
Yeah, but I think people who are using maps navigation are thinking in this way.
I don't know.
If you have a slide,
these are the same people who will spend, they'll spend 3 hours washing their car instead of paying somebody $15 to do it.
I could see it both ways on that. I could see it both ways on that one, only because some people feel like if they do it themselves, that they're pleased with the job.
Quality is a different conversation. I'm talking about just to save the money.
Yeah, I would not. Admittedly, if you can find a $3 car wash, I'm really impressed. I have a car wash schedule for my car, which I've deviated from this year since my car has been garaged for part of the year, since I have not been commuting every day. I do a basic wash on a frequent basis, and then every few months I do a more intensive wash where they do. I do at the end of the winter I do an undercarriage wash to try to get some of the salt off, because it tends. I'm assuming from your previous statements you haven't driven much in snowy states.
Not since I was young.
Yeah, but you understand the concept of road salting and how it affects the undercarriage of a car.
Sure.
So
I did the same thing after I drove through the ocean.
yeah,
I went and washed off the undercarriage because salt bad.
yeah. So I do that at the end of the winter, and if it gets particularly bad in the middle of the winter, I'll do it an extra time. But I most of the time I just want an exterior wash. Occasionally, traditionally just before Passover, which is this time of year, I usually have them do an intense interior vacuuming just to clean off all of the breadcrumbs that might have been in my car from eating. But since I'm not driving my car around, I did not do that this year. Also, I've been vacuuming the own interior, and I've only been getting exterior washes this year. I even you know how they normally in some car washes they want to drive your car into their machinery.
Yep.
I didn't want them to do that, so I drove it in myself. I tipped them for them not doing what they normally did.
Cool.
Well, again, they were very accommodating, which I appreciated. So, moving along, I appreciate the idea of eco-friendly navigation, but there's the secondary part of it that I'm mentioning. I think a slider would be understandable to all people, and I think that they should do that, and that would get a lot of interest. So, move to the left if you consider money to be more valuable than time. Move to the right if you consider time to be more valuable than money. Move to the left if you'd rather if you would rather spend more time on highways than local roads. So essentially, allowing you to tune your traveling experience rather than making it binary. And you can even have a let Google figure this out for you option.
Yeah.
No, you've seen those where you have like the automatic button and then you can untick that and then do your manual settings.
Yep.
Also, Google, being a company that likes learning, could actually analyze how often you deviated from the route to stay on a highway. They could do their own analysis.
It occurs to me that an additional benefit of eco-friendly means you spend less in gas.
Yeah. Which is a financial consideration also.
Yep.
But again,
so I might pick the eco-friendly just because, man, if that's going to save me gas money, then
yeah,
it doesn't cost me any extra time. Rock on.
I honestly think that the Google route changing thing in Android Auto is not as there's changes I'd make to that as well. For example, if you've ever pressed the route changing button when it gives you the option of alternate routes,
I do it frequently.
yeah, it doesn't always explain to you exactly where it's taking you.
What are you talking about? There's a little gray line that says this is the alternate.
What I'm saying is in the Android Auto interface. You have a bigger screen than I do, though.
Oh.
So I might not get as much detail on my car as you do just because of the size.
Okay.
Yesterday I took a 3-hour circular drive, which, as you may recall, I did a bunch in Florida and I did a bunch in New York before I left. So I've been planning these sort of scenic trips to see different parts of both New York and Florida. So since I did one yesterday, I was deliberately looking for alternate routes so that it would be a circle instead of me going back on the shortest route, which would mean me seeing the same scenery. And I was having the hardest time getting Google to give me an alternate route back. So I had to design when I tested it on my phone, it wasn't working, so I had to design the entire trip on my computer, putting in waypoints so that it would take different roads. So I told it I wanted to visit a random library in the middle of nowhere, just because it was on the right road, which would turn my trip into a circle. Anyway, aside, something I need to work on, and something I'd like maps to help me with when I deliberately am trying to plan going a certain way. Why does the map system not have a bookmark? That's my last maps question. Do you know? Why can't I bookmark a trip?
Don't know, because things change over time, so...
No, what I'm saying is...
A route today may not be valid for tomorrow.
Well, not necessarily the route. I'm saying when I have when I want to more than point A to point B. I have like a 4-stop route that I want to save in my phone. I should be able to save that somewhere. I was able to do it by putting a shortcut on my home screen, but there's no actual bookmarking capability. Anyway, Stack is a new Google experiment that's supposed to help you organize documents. So I know a few years ago I tried with scanning my receipts and keeping them into an app.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to try that again, because I have a little scanner that could do it. This does it with photos, but I have one of those document scanners sitting around, like a cheap one.
Yeah.
So I thought this would be a good idea to start scanning things, but then the app I was using, which was a web app, stopped working because they went out of business. So clearly it wasn't working out for them either. But I don't know. This looks interesting, though. Google is really good at information organization, so I hope this works out for them. But our continual comment on how Google projects do not always last very long.
Yeah.
They could build this into Docs, though. They could very easily say, it's an experiment now, but we're going to merge this functionality into Docs afterwards, the same way they did with Inbox. Although they still haven't merged in all the Inbox functionality.
I'm still not really happy with any document organization solution out there.
So Google may come up with something you like.
As long as it's accessible, it needs to be accessible from the desktop. And a pure Android app, it does me no good.
I'll agree with that. But they did that with things like photos. They created both a robust desktop and phone experience, and they expanded both in different ways. So you never know. If you're using Meet, unlimited video call length on Meet has been extended for Gmail accounts till June.
Ooh.
I like Meet. We're not using it, but I like Meet. Sundar Pichai testified on social media in the role of social media in promoting misinformation.
How did I miss that?
So I thought you would find this interesting because it includes sort of the text of his speech, where he talks about their philosophy and how they responded to various events.
I'm sure I'll find it to be evil, but can you give us a summary?
Okay, just to give you a few examples from his speech. He touches on the events of January 6th and how in response their teams worked to raise up authoritative news sources, and teams at YouTube took down any live streams or videos that violated our incitement to violence policies. So in the Play Store, they removed apps for violating policies on inciting violence, prohibited advertisers from running ads that referenced topics related to the Capitol riots and the scope of our sensitive events policy. Again, I have a sudden desire to read the sensitive events policy. I understand the inciting violence policy without me reading it, but I'm curious what their definition of sensitive events is. They have a part where they talk about their contribution to the integrity of the election by helping people find authoritative information on sources.
They're full of shit.
Again, anytime any CEO of any company testifies to Congress, there's a certain amount of that. How much is a matter of debate. Certainly a lot of them will avoid answering questions because they have to protect the share price, and they won't make up necessarily a lie, but they will sort of misrepresent things. Either way, essentially, this is what Google said on the subject. You can look elsewhere for what the other CEO said, but I did want to continue to sort of point out that this is a controversial issue. Let's move on to something that's completely without controversy. The Louvre put its entire collection online. So if you want to go and visit the Louvre, and you cannot get to Paris right now, which I can't, you can go and look at their artwork, consisting of more than 480,000 pieces.
That's crazy.
This is the future. This was my dream years ago, you know. I don't think I've ever told you that. Not specifically the Louvre going online. When I was in school, in college, one of the things that I was really excited about at the time was that they were starting to digitize all of these historical archives, and I have a history bent. And there was a time when I thought that the career that I would end up in would be working on putting information out there for everybody to enjoy. I didn't end up in that career, but it's something that I, thought was something that I would enjoy doing, and I still to this day enjoy looking at old bits of information and putting them out there. So I am very pleased when any organization opens up its catalog, because remember, a lot of the museum's physical space in most museums is far less than their actual holdings. So let's take the Smithsonian. You can go to the Smithsonian and see a lot of things, and then when they rotate their exhibits, you'll see other things, but a large percentage of their collection is in boxes in the basement. And it may not be exhibited for years.
That's true.
True. Yeah, so there is also something to be said. I've seen many pictures of the Mona Lisa. I am sure that there's a different experience in seeing the actual physical object. I'm using
I don't
it
know
as
about so much for paintings.
I know
for like architecture and stuff.
Yeah, I'm just using it as an example. It's different for everybody.
I don't know. It's odd, but smell really adds to an experience. I don't know.
I'm not so sure about that, only because also when I was in school, I was given the opportunity to handle a classic manuscript. And then I found out that this was one of those manuscripts where they clean the paper with urine. But that's a whole other story. Anyway, just going to the point, I think that there's still, even with putting everything online, there's still a call for people to physically see the thing that's online. But I think with accepting that most museums cannot show you everything they have, this allows those things to be seen and appreciated, even if it's not the full experience. And if they want to say to get access to their entire online collection, you have to give them a donation to keep whatever efforts. I'm not saying that I can donate to every single museum, but I would certainly think that that was a reasonable compromise. If they had some of their stuff that was available for free and some of it that you had to pay for. Again, even if it's just a suggested donation. AT&T has lobbied against nationwide fiber. They say that 10 megabit uploads are good enough.
Of course they say that.
Clearly they've missed the last year of everybody's lives where more and more people are going online, therefore needing more bandwidth.
Yep.
Admittedly, I could survive on 10 megabit uploads if I rationed. But why should I have to ration? That's like saying that, only getting 1 bucket of water from the sink a day is good enough. Yeah, it probably is. However, why do I have to limit myself? If there is demand, why is it good enough to say we're not going to build out that demand and we're going to make people ration themselves when there is no limit to the commodity? The limit is they don't want to spend money on the commodity.
I have a conspiracy theory possibility.
Okay.
By limiting upload speeds, you limit people's ability to self-publish.
I'm not sure I agree with that one. I thought by limiting they can charge you more money for what they're getting.
No, I think that. I don't think. I'm just throwing it out there. That maybe what they really want is they want to limit people's ability to contribute to the national conversation. They want people to be consumers, not creators, and this is how they can ensure that happens.
Interesting. I think it's about money, but that's just me.
It's about control and power.
Everything's about control. It just it depends on what you think people are controlling, which varies. Here's a story that is not about control, although it technically is. Hackers backdoor the PHP source code after they breach one of the install servers. So they essentially compromise the PHP source code which again, PHP runs a lot of websites. And if anybody had downloaded this particular corrupted file, they would have opened up a backdoor on their site to these people. That's disturbing.
That's crazy talk.
There are too many points of weakness on the internet.
Well, it was designed back in a time when, there wasn't evil.
There was evil. It just they didn't think that it was going to come to computers. You know, every technology, some pundit says that it's going to solve all of the problems of the universe. You know, that once we have radio, people will have so much information that there will be no more wars. Once we have television, it will solve everything. The internet will remove all global boundaries. It doesn't work that way. The same problems happen. They just migrate to a new medium. It may change the composition of the communities because now you may have an online community where previously you were limited by geographic communities, but the same problems occur. By the way, the 3D printer just finished.
Nice.
Verizon says it will finally shut down its CDMA network on December 31st, 2022.
Oh, no.
After multiple delays. And finally, T-Mobile was the first carrier to enable anti-spoofing technology with all the other major carriers ahead of the deadline.
Interesting.
So that brings us to the end of the show. Will you be available on Thursday next week, Terry? Or will you need to adjust?
We're not coming back until Friday, so maybe.
Okay, keep me posted. I will schedule. My suggestion is that we do not do a live show next week, and we schedule a recording at your convenience.
Okay.
So then we aren't beholden to any particular night.
Okay.
So next week there will be no live recording. It will be pre-recorded at whatever time we find. And remember, next week I'm not on vacation. But most evenings I can squeeze you in.
Cool.
We'll make it work. Also, I hope you will keep in touch during your trip. If you, I do know a lot about both the Virginia and DC area, and of course the New York area. Being a lifelong Northeasterner, if there's anything I can do, I won't say I'm an expert. There are plenty of things I don't know, but anything I can help with, I'm available. Even though I won't actually be in my apartment until after you leave, which is an unfortunate turn of events. Because if I was in Queens, I would come and see you. You're not. That and order from one of my favorite restaurants in that neighborhood. I'm in the midst of a fight with one place over there that redefined my house as being too far away from their delivery zone. I'm 5 miles away, but somehow in their computers it changed from 4.9 to 5.1 without me moving. So they declared that I was now just outside of their delivery zone.
Maybe they went from as the crow flies to driving.
I pointed out that they had delivered to my house many times. But either way, I told them, can I walk down the block? I'll walk to the end of the block. You can meet me there. Just call me when you're on your way. I'll stand at the end. So now if I want my holy schnitzel, I have to go there. By the way, I do recommend it, although I will say, again, you have a lot more choices than local kosher restaurants. Although you may find the experience of hanging around a Jewish neighborhood, or at least a very ultra-religious Jewish neighborhood, to be very interesting.
Why?
I don't know. Why do people visit the Amish? Why do people visit different neighborhoods to see different cultures?
You're Jewish. You're not Ethiopian.
Judaism is simultaneously a culture and a religion.
Right.
And there are a lot of different types of Jews, so that neighborhood has a very distinctive group to it. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that it is an interesting thing to see.
Okay. What should I be on the lookout for?
You tell me. Just tell me your impressions.
I don't know. Curly hair, really long beards.
In that neighborhood? Yeah, you'll see them. Anyway, I have to excuse myself to be elsewhere, since on Wednesdays I have a prior engagement.
Well, thank you very much for accommodating my schedule, and we will talk to y'all next week.
I look forward to hearing your observations.